dwell on the environment. They won't just get in and attack as soon as they get in. They'll get in and they'll have a good look around. They'll sniff about and say, oh, here's where you keep your backups. Oh, here's your disaster recovery site. Here's how you're replicating. And they'll find out exactly all of the interlinks between the different parts of your network. And then they'll spring their attack. And they don't just attack one piece of it. They'll encrypt your backups so you've no way to recover. They'll attack your disaster recovery site so you can't fail over. And all of a sudden you have no disaster recovery site and you've got no backups for it. So there's a lot of tools now available that are specifically around cybersecurity. So when you talk about backups now, you don't just look at a backup device. You want a backup device that has immutable backups. Now, I know some people think nothing is ever truly immutable, but immutable backups so that when you do the backup, it's time locked. Nobody can change that. Nobody can come back and encrypt it, delete it, make changes to it. So you have something to recover from. The guys in Expo can talk to you all about immutable backups and how they can help you with that. Or VMware, isolated recovery environments, where you can recover your environment into an isolated sandbox, test that it's clean, that everything is wiped off it, and if the backup restore is good, bring it back to production. If it's not, let's go to another backup and try that one instead. So that's kind of what we want to talk about here today, is kind of what can help you, what kind of tools you need, where you should go on the journey, and different bits. So David, I'm going to start with you. So Arctic Wolf, they are a partner for your security journey. So what is that, and how is that going to help customers, navigate compliance, insurance regulations, and in general help their cybersecurity posture?
Yeah, cool. So some of you may not have ever heard of Arctic Wolf, right? Some of you may have heard of the name but wasn't sure what it is. And quite often when I'm asked what's Arctic Wolf or what's an Arctic Wolf, I always leave it, Arctic Wolf is a security operations partner, right? We're going to talk about what challenges people can overcome, right, and approaches they need to take. And I'll interlink how Arctic Wolf do that as well. But what's a security operations partner? Right? What does that mean? You all do know what it means, but you'll have different terminologies and approaches for it, right? So a security operations partner, right? When we think of security operations, you've got reactive things you can do. You've got to detect things. You've got proactive things you can do to prevent things. You've got strategic planning and auditing and all that stuff for regulation and all of that, right? So when we think of reactive, we think of what systems do we have in place to detect something as it's happening so we can catch it, lock it down, isolate it, remove it, remediate it, learn from it, right? When we think of proactive things, we think, can we scan for our weaknesses in obvious areas, things like that. And then, of course, what can we do to harden systems, audit systems? Where can we plan going forward to put ourselves in a better posture, right? So all things kind of security operations. And the drive from that then is coming from, so for the last couple of years, and I've worked in Arctic Wolf relatively recently, but prior to that I was in vulnerability management, asset management. This is going on a long time. And the drive from it for the last couple of years is coming from a number of areas. So like the evolving and escalating threat landscape. We're seeing in the news every day a new breach, and it's not just the big players anymore. It's a small, mid-sized markets, right? It's a real thing now. People are really like, oh dear, I need to do something, right? You see it from a big thing for me is talent, right? You go to a company, a small, mid-sized company, talent is hard to buy, right? So if you want to do security operations and do it well, you need to buy people, pay them a lot of money. Those people will need more people and tools to do their job effectively, and that's an increasingly expensive thing to do. That's hard. So people are opting for a security operations partner, right, to do that for them effectively. And there's a whole other manner of things like regulation enforcements. All of these things is driving security operation partnerships. So a security operation partnership, what does Arctic Wolf do, and what is Arctic Wolf in terms of security operation partners, and what challenges are they overcoming, is the question. So when we think of Arctic Wolf, right, so the first thing I'll start on is the approach, right, regardless whether it's Arctic Wolf or anyone else, the approach, and my colleagues here will probably say something similar, I assume, which is the approach is you need to have broad visibility, right. So the first thing is when you look at your organization, right, first thing I would say personally is you should have the ability to pick and choose and procure whatever tools and technology and services you want without being dictated to by a vendor or whoever, right? So you should be able to buy whatever you want, whatever suits your organization, right? That might be budget driven, it might be value driven, feature driven, whatever it is. You might want this 1 year, you might want that the next year, right? You might want this, it's been fantastic for 10 years, but something went awry and now I'm moving away from it, right? In terms of the things that suit your organization, and every organization is different, right? The second thing I would say about broad visibility is you need to be able to see the entire landscape. So when I talk about that, I mean a threat can come from anywhere. So it's not just your endpoints, your networking gear, your infrastructure, your software, your identities, your external vulnerabilities, it's everything. And I know we had done some stats on this where it was basically with all the investigations we launched last year, when we broke them down by where the initial indicator was, so where was the initial stem from, it broke down pretty evenly across the board from all of those areas. So if you're just looking at one area or two areas, you're missing the big picture, right? That is a complex, hard thing to do, to suck in all that data and get some context around this. And I often use an analogy, the child analogy, right? This is because I have a kid and they drive me bananas, right? Which is, imagine, like if I just said to you, children laughing, children screaming, children fighting, children banging, children running, children sitting down reading a book. None of them would go alarm bells, right? You know, that's just everyday things that children do. But if I said to you, you're sitting in your office at home, and there's children running and playing outside the door, then there's children screaming, then there's children banging, and then you say, what's going on out there? And the children scrambling. Then you walk outside the door and there's no children. You go into the sitting room, there's one lying down crying and the other one is sitting dead still reading a book. Something's gone down there, guys. Right? Something suspicious needs to be dealt with. Security is no different. If you're just looking at one area, you see a log, you see a login, you see an access. Each one on their own is not red alert. But when you start to piece the things together, you can see patterns, you can see behaviors that are red alert and need to be dealt with. Right? So this is a hard thing to do. So what Arctic Wolf is a security operations partner delivering you security operations as an outcome. And what that means is we deliver that through what we call the concierge delivery model. And effectively what that means is when someone comes to Arctic Wolf, concierge is in two halves. We're taking in all of the data from all of the tools you're using today, vendor neutral, vendor agnostic, right? Doesn't make a difference to us what you're using. Suck in all the data. We can use our own native tools if needed. Suck in all the data into a platform. Big funnel of data, right? No data ingestion charges, none of that stuff, right? Pull in the data. Strip away the noise with your artificial intelligence, threat intelligence, rules, all that stuff. When we get down to interesting things, right? Now when you need to ask questions, what do we do? That's where concierge comes in. Concierge, so a customer comes to Arctic Wolf, they get a minimum of 2, potentially 3 security engineers, and that is 24/7 eyes on dashboard monitoring your data at all times for suspicious active threats in your organization. Peculiar behaviors, strange anomalies, anything. And obviously rating them from high, lows, things like that, right? Once it's detecting that, what do we do? Do we contain it? Do we remove it? Do we alert you? Do we do some automation? What do we do, right? Well, there's escalation paths. We need to know what we're going to do and working with you, understanding what's critical to you to do that as well. That's one half of it, right? The other half of concierge is a strategic security advisor, right? So we talk about planning and stuff like that. So, and often I'll say like, right, if you would, I spoke to someone earlier on today about this, if you had 2 credit unions in South Dublin, the same size, the same amount of users, the same amount of things, similar systems, and you went and you said, what are you going to do next month and what are you going to do next month in IT? They'll have completely different priorities, right? So everyone's security journey is different. So your concierge security engineer is the person who maps out that security journey with you based on priorities you need, as well as advising you on what's happening on current threats, trends. Because what's imminent, what's an imminent threat for your next door neighbor is not the same imminent threat for you. Depending on the systems you're using, the trends that are happening in your vertical, the size of your organization, it's all unique and we all need help. But that's where we have the expertise and they get dedicated to you and you have all that as well. And I'm bringing you on that security journey constantly along the way. And what I'll finish on is when you talk about how does that tie into regulation. So good security operations will reduce risk, right? How you do your security operations, I would say through broad visibility, getting that total view of your landscape and then contextually understanding the data. But then, of course, what you do in your security journey, whether it's proactively, whether it's strategically, whatever, all that stuff you do, not only does it have to reduce your organizational risk as a tangible thing, but you also need to tie that back to something like regulations and best practices and all of these things, so you can be more in line with. And we talk about this too, and I'm sure we're going to talk about it a bit. It's a it's a bugbear of mine, but people get hooked on it, right? It's something you need to do legally, but it's a journey, right? So if you're already following a framework like a NIST or CIS, you're already a long way down the road. You're not like, oh dear, we have to do this whole new thing. You're already on the way down the road. You're already on the journey, right? So you're almost there. So as you're going through and making your changes, all of that will map back to, via concierge, map back to best practices frameworks that will align you to things like NIST 2 and NIST and CIS and all of that. So to overcome those challenges, that's what I would say.
Thanks, David. So, Ivan, for customers that are looking to get started on this journey, if they haven't already started on it, because NIS2 and DORA and other regulations are requiring certain industries, you must comply with these regulations. So they're going to be on a journey. But cybersecurity is for everybody. It's not just for these important and essential businesses. So if you're getting started, where would you start? What tools would you start with? And how would you build out your tool set on the journey?
Okay, so assuming that you don't have anything, a very rare case, but we assume this.
Yep.
Then I would start with endpoint detection and response, because that's the last line of defense. And then I would use, for example, SES Complete from Symantec, where you get different tools. For example, you get something called TDAD, threat detection for AD, where they populate on the agent that is distributed for all the devices. So they are fake admin accounts. And whenever you get a hit on them, because a real admin wouldn't ask for these kind of things. But if you have a malicious actor inside your environment, he doesn't know this. So he will ask for, give me all the admin accounts. And then you get a trigger point. And then you know they are inside. And for a fact, at least in Sweden, where I live, they say that malicious actor isn't found for 270 days before they are actually found. So that's quite a long time before we even realized that we had a breach. They may not even have done anything. They have just established and waiting, lurking in the shadows. So that's would be where I would start. And then build up on that. The next step would be email protection, because that's the biggest threat vector where we see a lot of breaches coming from. Next step would be DLP solution to figure out where is all my information residing. Do we have any, is people using GDPR data in their own Google accounts, for example? We must stop this, because then I don't have control of the data anymore to be compliant, for example. So that would be where I would start. And also assets. Get a grip of your assets, because I'm building back to your analogy here. I'm feeling like a teenage dad telling people you have to fix your mess, because it's looking like a teenage bedroom in here. It's old accounts. There is nobody have used them for several years. Oh, sorry, we didn't know that this was still on. We should have shut down that environment for 2 years ago. Yeah, you know the drill.
I know the drill, and unfortunately, VMware and the capabilities of virtualization, it's just so easy to leave that virtual machine there. It's not really consuming a physical space, it's just sitting there. And, if you're not using it, if it's not required, get rid of it, because it's sitting there and you're not looking at it and nobody else is looking at it. But the hackers are looking at it going, hey, here's a nice little spot for me to sit around and look at everything else in the network, and nobody is looking at me because it's just sitting there. unloved and unwanted by anybody but the hackers. So if you're not using it, get rid of it. So having that inventory and knowing what everything is in your organization is very important for it. So yeah.
And
get
ask
control of
questions. Ask questions from your supplier. If you use cloud, what firmware do they have?
Yeah.
Because where is my responsibility ending? Well, you need to know, and they need to provide you with that information so you can give that to the authorities when you have a breach. We know that we was on this code base.
Yeah. And just speaking of cloud, I mean, one of the things to be aware of and to realize is that if you're using cloud storage, if you're using Microsoft 365 for all of your document storage, and heaven forbid Microsoft have a ransomware attack and all of your data is locked out, where are you in the pecking order for getting that data restored? They're going to have, all my top tier customers, and where are you before it gets restored? So you could be waiting. They'll get it fixed, hopefully, but when will they get it fixed? And can they even give you that estimation based on if they have to recover, multi-petabytes of data in data centers spread across the world?
I think we can assure that it will be calendars, not days.
Right. Yeah. So Tony, from a Cisco perspective, we know that nearly all, if not, I won't say nearly all, the majority of the world's data is passing through a Cisco device somewhere or other along its journey. But in terms of a broad perspective that David mentioned, having this broad security portfolio, how do you see that, the journey there, and why is it going to help
Sure.
IT managers?
Yep. No, thanks very much, Tom. Before I go on, actually, I love your analogy of kids fighting, actually. And, when you said malicious actor, the first thing that popped into my head was that my sister was the first original malicious actor. Because she would hold her arm and scream, and then when my mum came in, she'd go, "Tony hit me," but anyway, I digress. Sorry, no, but thanks, Tom, and thanks for having me on the panel, and great event so far as well. So, so I'm in Cisco about 20 years, and when I first joined, Cisco Security amounted to, if anybody remembers, the ASA platform. It was a fantastic layer 3 stateful inspection or packet filter, whatever you wanted to call it. You could only configure it via CLI, and that was pretty much the full Cisco portfolio. Since then, obviously, talking to customers and so forth, we built up our portfolio quite drastically since those days. But actually, just going back to customers first before we go into the actual portfolio, when I talk to customers, there's three main things that comes out nearly again and again, amongst others, but three things for me that come out from customers' challenges with regards to security. The first one is complexity of solutions. Is always comes up in terms of how to deploy them. Complexity of operations also comes out, and then skills gaps or shortage of security staff always comes up as well. They're the three that come up again and again for me. I think also where a lot of them come from is as an industry and as vendors, including ourselves, we've always nearly put the onus on customers or our partners to look after the product, to deploy it and define it and get it working and so forth. And that's just not good enough, basically, as an industry and as vendors. So really over the last probably 10 years, I would say maybe 15 years, we've really tried to, build up a portfolio that really encompasses nearly every single area, not all, but nearly every single area within the actual security space. But it's not about building up that portfolio. What we've then done is try to integrate those products with one another to increase the efficacy and the security and the ease of operations of all those products working together. At the same time, we realised that no customer in the world is probably just going to have a Cisco box and nobody else's. So, as part of those integrations, we have, I think, we've lots of different partnerships. We have about 300 in the security space, where we integrate with third-party products, basically, to again increase the efficacy and the security of both products in that particular space as well. As I say, we probably have just in the security part, if you look at our GPL, our global price list, I think there's about 100,000 products on it at this stage. But in security overall, there must be about 50 definitions of products within that space. And one of the things we've done also is to try simplify Where do I start? To the question posed to you, and where do I start with security? So we've really distilled our products down into 3 suites, making it easier for customers to acquire. It's about the user, the endpoint, if you like. So protect the user. It's also about either the data center or the cloud, so protect the cloud. And then what you do from a breach protection, both from a product and services perspective. So we've distilled everything down quite simply into just those 3 areas. And you can purchase it on a per user basis per month of all those, and then you get available access to all the products within that particular space. So I suppose, if I had to sum up the question in one word, I would say to simplify security, or, well, that's 2 words. To simplify, and then you can do in brackets security after that. But to simplify is really our main approach. One other area, and please don't roll up your eyes when I say this 2-letter thing, artificial intelligence or AI. It is a huge area. It is not going away. Yes, it has been overhyped in the media. Is it overhyped? Absolutely not, in my view. Is it overhyped in the media? Yes. And we're specifically probably talking about Gen AI as opposed to the broader term of AI here. But certainly in Cisco, we're taking probably 3 approaches to this with regards to security. The first one is the use of AI in terms of our threat intelligence operations to do better analytics of what's going on and get faster time to figure out exactly what's going on. So we're absolutely using AI in that area. The second area, which I think is really important, is using AI to, again, simplify security. So having an AI assistant for all of our security products, and indeed all of our other products as well, over a period of time. We're nowhere near there yet. But what we don't want to do is have like an AI assistant for this product, an AI assistant for this product, and then having 50 of them and then becoming unmanageable. So we literally will have one AI assistant across our entire portfolio. It'll take a little bit of time, but that is absolutely the vision for where we're going forward. And again, it's to simplify security, if you like. And then the third one is, if you're not doing anything about AI in your organizations today, you really need to. If you think back to the days when you had that term shadow IT, I use the term shadow AI, because we're not doing anything about AI in the organization. I guarantee you the users are, and they're doing something that you can't police or don't really want happening. So if you haven't built up a strategy for AI in your organization, I would strongly encourage you to do it. And there are an awful lot of benefits, obviously, and we'll see those, and you probably know your own business better than I do, obviously, of how AI will be appropriate in your organizations. So again, just to summarize, it is to simplify security is really where our focus is.
Great, thanks guys. So at this stage, I'm going to open up to the floor for questions. Any questions for the panel guys from the floor? Don't be shy. Yeah.
One of the things I've noticed is as we introduce more features, so things like AI, the threat landscape becomes much larger. Is there a stage where the extra functionality isn't worth that threat anymore? And if so, where would that stage kind of sit?
But specifically around AI, right? So yes, AI does introduce threats. There will be threats associated with them. AI, the bad actors will use AI too. At the end of the day, every technology that's ever been produced will have a good aspect to it and a bad aspect to it. Certainly, I heard a great statement there the other day actually around AI. It was to do with radiologists. And what they basically said was, will AI replace radiologists? Because if you think about radiologists, it's about pattern matching basically, right? And AI is pretty damn good at that. So if they, and even today, they will be able to spot certain things, maybe cancer or whatever it is, God forbid, in a X-ray that a radiologist may have potentially missed. So the question was posed, will AI replace radiologists? And they absolutely said 100% no. But what will be replaced is radiologists that use AI will replace radiologists that don't. And like that, security personnel that don't use AI will be replaced by security personnel that don't. So specifically on the AI part, yes, there are threats associated with AI, but absolutely we need to take advantage of the benefits of AI to sort of counter those threats at the same time.
Yeah, I would say there's an ongoing debate over a trust in AI, right? And obviously AI is, becoming more and more sophisticated, right? And you think from the early ChatGPT days to kind of how we're using it now, right? Bad data in is bad data out, right? But the level that AI has got to now is so sophisticated, it's just unbelievable. It's mind-blowing at times. But I saw last week the Google, what do they call it? The Google AI engine found its first
Yeah.
0 day. It just happened to be in a Google Comcast, right? So it was their own product that they found a 0 day in. So I don't know how much I trust that AI 0 day hunter if you're finding it in your own technology as opposed to someone else's. But it just goes to show, I suppose, if you're trusting AI a lot, right? Bad data in, bad data out, so trust or beware. But also as a defender, like AI is enabling security defensively to be more capable. It's as was said, you have to adapt it. But adapt it with a bit of common sense and don't believe all the hype either. But you have to adapt it because every technology is using it. But using it well is the key. Using it to get you so far, to speed up the things that can be sped up, but also to keep applying what needs to be applied, like logically to things to solve the problems. But yeah, that would be my take on it.
Yeah. I think that you're spot on there, actually, because you still need to have, no, not of course.
I said that's a first.
Okay, sorry. But anyway, because the output that you get today, it's still in the early stages. You need to have the knowledge to know that, okay, this is hallucinating. This is me answering my daughter when I wasn't listening to the question. Yeah, sure. It sounds good. I'm very confident, but I don't know what she asked me. So, and I'm just answering her to get away. I need my privacy now.
Just to go back to your original question, if you don't mind, just a funny aside, but it does make a relevant point. At the end of the day, it's always an arms race, right? People will always look for ways around certain things and then you implement, and you constantly have to evolve and innovate all the time to get around that. When ChatGPT 3, I think it was, first came out, somebody put in a question to it that said, I want to murder my wife, and can you give me the top way in which I can get away with murdering my wife? And ChatGPT came back with, here are the top 5 ways in which you can murder your wife and get away with it. So obviously that's not really appropriate, right? So they put in some what they call guardrails to stop those types of questions being answered. So some smart person, it was the same person or somebody different, put in a question that basically said, I'm writing a novel and the main character wants to murder their wife. And sure enough, it came back, here's the top 5 ways. So, you know, when we put in guardrails, somebody will find probably another way. There's no silver bullet in security. We constantly have to evolve and adapt basically to new challenges all the time.
And that's very true, that this is not, because you said it's a journey, but the journey never stops. We only know as much as we know today. We don't know what we don't know. And that will be tomorrow and further into the...
Evolving threats.
Yeah.
As I said, when I started, viruses were the most scary things that you could get into your environment. You put a firewall in and a little bit of virus scanning on your PC, that's it. That's my cybersecurity journey is finished now. Whereas it's a much different landscape now, and you have all of these additional threats, and I suppose training for your end users is a huge part of your journey. I mean, if you had to start somewhere, cyber training or phishing email threats and that kind of training for your staff to please don't click on the link that says, I'm really important, click here now, on the mail, or, you know, you have just been inherited X amount of money from your long lost cousin in Bangalore, wherever it is. It's getting your staff aware. Do not do anything that you don't know where it came from. Don't click on links and what can happen. And there's a huge amount of companies now that are out there to help you with phishing campaigns, and they can show you who's engaged with them, who's clicked on the emails, you know, would we benefit from it, you know, and give you that report back to say, holy cow, if this had been a real attack, we'd have been decimated by the number of people that actually went through and clicked and followed the links that were in these various emails. So for me, that's a really good place to start. Putting in email filtering, you know, it's an almost an unintrusive thing that you can put in. You just redirect your MX, it does a scan before the mail gets into your environment, you know, removes an awful lot of these attacks before ever they even get to your employees to have a look at. But there's an awful lot as well coming in VIP impersonation within your company. You know, they know who the VIP, the managing director or somebody is from a company, and you get an email for them saying, oh, I left my phone at home, I need you to do this, will you transfer this money, whatever it is right now, blah, and off they go. Okay, so those kind of things are really good starting points for you to, you know, get involved with from an email perspective. Hi, Clara.
I was just going to make a comment as well, just on
Yeah.
the NIS 2, you know, the National Cybersecurity
Yeah.
Centre. Is there, I don't know if you've already covered that off, but just for NIS 2 specifically, they do have a website called Am I in Scope, where you can check as a company if you're going to be impacted by NIS 2.
Yep.
And I know David and myself, we were at a recent security summit where Oisin Smith was talking as well. And the government have released budget basically and grants for our customers, which I think is up to 3,000 to get yourself a security assessment for your company. And I think there's also grants as well for remediation. So just again, just to let people know that if you're saying where do I start from an IS2?
Yeah, there's a whole thing out now, if you're not aware of this, especially small, mid-sized companies, that you apply for a grant, just if you're not aware of the process, right? You apply for a grant. The grant is to get someone to come in to assess you like a consultant. It doesn't have to be from their list, but they have to have certain qualifications like CISP or whatever, CISM. They come in, they do a gap analysis. It's $3 grand grant or something like that. They do a gap analysis. They come in and say your gaps are here, here, here. And then you go and procure tools to fill those gaps, and they will supply you or up to 60 grand. That counts up to 80% of whatever the cost of that is, right? Problem is that all has to be in by the 8th of December. So what I would say is, when you leave here, have a look at that. Join me on LinkedIn. I posted about it yesterday. But yeah, so it's there. Have a look at that. It's on the government websites as well. But yeah, it's free money, and it'll help you along the journey. And there's all the guys.
Hopefully it'll be extended, right?
Yeah. Well, you'd hope.
Or we have a new government.
Yeah, so we've time for one more question. And I think
Quick,
that,
Yeah, so every single company up there, the three companies, your main task is about cyber resilience, I suppose, cyber protection. What about cyber insurance? Is that something that is very specific for a small to medium-sized company, you know, going through a cyber insurance claim or even assessment, 200 pages or something, I think it is 200 something pages. So is that worth it to do that, in your opinion, in your personal opinion, right? Like everyone else, don't take this as a grain of salt, of course, but like the job that you do is protection. Is it worth for a small to medium-sized company to go through that to get cyber insurance? Because it's a long journey. It's a lot of things that, well, I was trying to be political.
No, so I get what you're saying, right? So I'll jump in on this and then see what you got, right? So this is a particular pain in the backside, right? So if anyone's gone through a journey of trying to get cyber insurance, it is hell. And he's not exaggerating. There is a million questions to go through, right? And like any insurance thing, right? Your insurance covers based on the information you provide. Right? You go get car insurance. Do you have penalty points? No. Right? You get in an accident and you realize you have 8, you lied to us, you're not covered. Right? So when it comes to cyber, right, you go through all of these things and all your due diligence, due care. You have to be as accurate as you can be to get the cover that you need. Right? That's really, really hard thing to go through, to the point where it nearly just deters someone to go, this is not worth it. Now, the question is cyber insurance worth it? The horrible answer is, it depends. It depends on the appetite of the business. So let's say you're a business. What's the appetite of that business to invest in security solutions, right? What is, I'd love to go buy in my own threat intelligence feeds and buy in my own stuff and hire in a team of 10 and have all this, but my company makes 1 million a year and I want a budget of about 10 million to do that. So no, you're not getting that. So what's the appetite to invest in cyber security, right? So when it comes to insurance, the question is, how much are you willing to transfer, right? And that's financial transfer and risk transfer, right? So, I know I'm kind of beating around the bush here, but to get to the point, is I believe cyber insurance is worth it if you are, like, it's definitely worth it if the cover and the cost of the cover matches what you're transferring, right, and the risk you're taking off. Now, what I will say is, from the likes of Arctic Wolf, and I'm sure the guys, with Arctic Wolf specifically, I just talked about R1, right? A spoke about, we do the MDR piece, the Security Operations Partnership. What we do also have is a thing called a cyber resilience assessment, right? A lot of companies will have something like this, where they come in and they assess your organization to figure out where your gaps are, right? And we'll map these things to frameworks like NIST and CIS and all of this, right? Now, with that, there's also an element of what's called insurability rating, right? And insurance works on kind of good, better, best. Where are you good, where are you better, where are you best, based on all the questions that they give you, right? So based on your answers, they say you're 80% good, 10% better, whatever, best. And based on that, your insurability rating, here's the cost of your premium, right? What you need then is, as a company, especially if you're a small and mid-sized company, you need advisors, you need people who've gone through it. I know there's guys in our group, you have a whole team that just literally will get on a phone with you and go through it with you to reduce your premiums and know how to word the things and the answers so that you have the cover and your premium reductions. We've seen people get 20-25% reductions in their premiums by just using Arctic Wolf, by having a security operations partner or having a solution in place that covers that, rather than I've got antivirus, I've got a firewall, what's my insurance? Well, that's going through the roof because you're just too much of a risk, right? So it's about getting all your ducks in a row. Is it worth it? I think so, depending on the appetite of security from the company. And the level of cover that's available to you based on that.
Yeah, you only need insurance if you're going to be attacked, basically, right? So, but it's when that attack comes and you can't see the future, unfortunately, right? So as I talk more and more customers are taking out insurance, is my view that I see. It's nearly becoming, cyber insurance isn't becoming popular. What's becoming popular is digitization of businesses. And if your business is digitized and you will lose money if your digital services are down, then you need insurance because you cannot afford, you will lose your business. Like there used to be the old thing that they said, like a bank would not reopen if they were closed for more than 3 days because they have lost complete trust, they have lost so much money, etc., etc. So they had it well defined on what their risk was in terms of their services. So I suppose every business needs to look at what their risk is associated with their digital services, and if that amounts to a large sum of money, whatever it is, then you absolutely need insurance, would be my view.
Okay, I'm a technician, so I have actually not been involved in these discussions. But I can tell you a story instead regarding insurance, because there was a company in Sweden that was breached, and everyone was running with hands up in the air and screaming, "What should we do? What should we do?" And they actually got a local contractor to help them, and he was doing his magic stuff, and they had a meeting through Teams, because that's a secure platform. And they were discussing if they should use this insurance, because I don't really recall the figures, but let's say it was like 50,000 euros. And they were insured for 100,000. So they discussed this in this board meeting. And soon enough, when the meeting was over, the threat actor contacted them and told them that, yeah, it was a really nice meeting that we had. I was listening in, and you can forget about our old figure. We want 90,000 now. So did that help them? Yeah, you decide.
I think that's one of the things in the NIS2 agreement, is that all communications have to be encrypted. So you can't just open up a Teams chat to discuss your problems. You're going to have any communications.
Actually, it was encrypted, but he was inside their environment.
Yeah.
There is no silver bullet.
It's locking the house with the robber inside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there you go.
He was just sitting in the living room, listening in.
Great. So, guys, thanks very much to the panel, and thanks very much to the audience for coming in.